I could be a mess, stressed in yesterday. He don't care less, he sees me anyway. Yeah, he sees me anyway. My dog thinks I'm great, he thinks I'm number one. He never hates, even when I'm done. I come home late, tracking mud on the floor. He can't.
Well, it's not good morning today, it's a good evening. And despite what I said the other day, that Chef does not usually want to go out for a walk once it kind of gets past 7:30, due to me going to the gym a little bit later this morning, and then it being such a ridiculously hot day, by the time I got back from the shops and the gym, it was already, I thought, way too hot to take him out. So we're on a lovely evening stroll. Now the sun is going down slowly but surely, and yeah, so out for a nice walk. It's nice, much cooler than I expected. I think it's been well over 30 most of the day. So we have a happy boy. Are you happy, Chef? Is he good? Good boy. So yes, so I thought, as many of you know, I'm a miniatures painter. It's one of the things I love to do. It's my way of resetting and recharging and kind of just getting out of my own head. It's a little bit like the gym for me in many ways. It's a way for me to just kind of, you know, just chill out and not think too much, not think too hard, and you know, just kind of just chill out and, you know, focus on something else other than the woes of life and the living crisis. Hang on a second, buddy. Come here. Come on, off you go. Now you can go for a carefree sniff and find whatever he wishes to find. He's got a lovely snail trail of slobber all over his face, which is very appealing, but you probably can't see that. Anyway, yes. So, like I say, I like to paint miniatures. And I think a lot of people probably would like to do it as well. And it's one of those things that, unless you're in my son's position, and you have a father who's kind of could show you the ropes and stuff like that. Although, having said that, made a lot easier by YouTube nowadays. You know, there's nothing you can't learn how to do. So this is my top 5 helpful tips for new beginners in painting. Oh, great. Thank you for that, Chef. Right. I'll be back with you in 1 second. Right, lovely. You don't want to see what I'm carrying in my left hand, but right. So these are in no particular order. Okay. Yeah, number 1 is, if you like it, paint it. So lots of people you will hear when they say about miniatures painting and getting into it stuff, they'll say, oh, buy cheap green army men or just cheap miniatures and just test on those. Now, that's not entirely without, you know, without merit, but one thing I can guarantee is a massive part of painting miniatures is inspiration. Now, if you see a miniature and it inspires you and you desperately want to get some paint on it, regardless of your skill level, you will paint it better than something you're just painting for the sake of painting. You'd be much better off, you know, even if it just costs a little bit more, whatever, you know, at the end of the day, you will paint it better if it truly inspires you, if it caught your eye. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I don't get stung by stinging nettles here. Yeah, you will paint it better if it generally inspires you. If it's just a generic model that kind of means nothing to you, loves a molehill, then you're just going to put better. You can envisage it. You can see it before you've done it. Well, hopefully you can. You'll be able to, you know, when you first saw the miniature, it caught your eye. Just look for other dogs. Yeah, when you first saw that miniature, you will have had an idea of like, oh yeah, how cool that Space Marine would look in red, you know, with like flames coming out of up his legs or something. Yeah, you're just going to do a better job. If you're just painting a mini that kind of does nothing for you, doesn't inspire you, you know, then yeah, fine, you can learn some bits on it. But I think one of the biggest keys when you're just starting out is to you want a few quick wins. You know, you want to start off and think, oh yeah, that was, you know, that went well. You want to be happy with what you've done to some degree at the end, and you're far more likely to do that with a miniature that actually appeals to you than just something cheap you managed to get hold of. So yeah, paint what inspires you. Number 2. Now this is, you don't need everything all at once. So, when I was young, there were very few options, paint-wise, or even tools of the trade-wise and everything like that. Now, there are so many paint ranges, and they're so great. They're fantastic. You know, they've all kind of got their benefits. They've all got things that they do. You know, you might have one paint range that has a particularly great yellow. You might have one paint range where the range of browns is just beautiful, just speaks to you, and they're just lovely, lovely shades of different leathers and woods and, you know, things like that. But when you're first starting out, there's 2 ways I would go about it. And you could kind of mix the 2 of these. Most paint ranges will have some level of starter box. You know, it probably comes with primary and secondary colours, and then a few others, like a couple of metallics, like a silver and a gold. Might come with a couple of paint brushes, a little collapsible water pot, you know, some bits and pieces that, you know, good to get you started. You know, it'll have a white, a black, a yellow, a red, a green, a blue, you know, like I said, a gold, a silver. So that's a great place to start. It's called a starter kit for a reason, but there is also other sets that will be like the mega paint set, and it's a glorious box of rainbow and beautiful shades of all sorts of colours with all these beautiful names like, you know, raw gum pink and classic goblin green or dragon horde gold. They're fine, that's great. But get a little starter set that will start you off well, and then look at that starter set, and if you think, oh, it hasn't got purple in it, or it hasn't got a pink in it, or I want a darker red, or something like that, then invariably, wherever you're buying said starter set, hopefully there is a big rack of paints with all the colours of the rainbow and many more. What are you doing? You having a scratch? Yeah, there's a huge rack of paints, and that's where you can maybe go, right, yeah, I'll buy a nice flesh colour, and, you know, maybe a purple or a nice turquoise or something, you know, maybe a colour or two that interests you and is a little bit out of the norm from a sort of starter range kind of level of colours. So yeah, you don't need it all at once. Good boy. Start off, and then as you progress and as you grow and as you get more miniatures and you start doing more things, you can pick up more paints. So yeah, so that's my second piece. Don't buy everything all at once. 3, buy what you can get easily. So, like I said, there are so many great paint ranges. Classic Citadel, or now it's called Warhammer Paint, because Games Workshop has basically turned everything into Warhammer something. Yeah, so there's Warhammer, there's Army Painter, Tooth and Coats, Vallejo, P3 from Steamforged, all fantastic. And like I said before, they all do things. You particularly itchy. What are we doing? Want a treat? You get it? He usually catches better than that. Yeah, so they all do things great. They all do things, some do things better than others do things. So my advice would be, if you're lucky enough to have a hobby shop nearby, and most people probably live not too far away from some sort of hobby or model shop. So my advice would be, if you're not sure what paint range to start with one that you actually have access to. You want to, as I said, when you want to start adding to that paint range that you have, then you want to be able to do that easily. Bear in mind, people, I am talking in a UK sense in all these things. I don't know what the likelihoods of any of these factors are if you're in the US or in Europe in general, or anywhere else in the world. So yeah, look for what's nearby. So if you've got a nice art shop nearby, then that's a really good place to get your brushes and maybe a palette or something like that. There's lots of things you could do, palette wise, where you could just use a plate. Really, you don't need to buy a palette or anything like that. What you doing? Yeah. So, I would, when you're buying that first sort of paintbrush in your art shop or something like that, buy a sort of middle of the range paintbrush. Don't buy a cheap, here's 30 of them for £5. Well, there's 30 brushes that you might as well use as toothpicks. They're going to be crap. They're going to make your life harder. Whereas if you maybe spend, you want probably 3 brushes, a sort of couple of sort of reasonable size for sort of regular base coating and stuff like that. And then maybe a sort of flatter brush if you're going to do some dry brushing, something like that. Yeah, to find their sort of mid-range, maybe they cost £6-7 a brush. Nothing crazy, but something that you've spent enough on it that you're going to actually look after it a bit. Okay, because you do want to look after your brushes. They will treat you as well as you treat them. Yeah, so yeah, number 3, buy what you can get hold of. Good boy. You can do it down for me? You can do it down? Down. Good boy. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Tell you what, this is a beautiful evening. When we moved to this village, it was a lot of, really was a case of, trying to get the sort of most bang for our buck. And being a small village without a rail station, stuff like that, you just get that bit more bang for your buck. And yeah, I love this village. It's so nice. One thing I just it never occurred to me, but our house backs out over the fields. For as far as I could see, essentially, there's nothing but farmland and cows in the field at the moment. And the sun sets over over that horizon out of my back garden, and the sunsets we get just take my breath away on a daily basis. I think we're probably on the verge of having a nice one tonight. But yeah, it just goes these beautiful pinks and purples, and always starts off as it is at the moment with these beautiful golden yellow hues and orange. I just never occurred to me, when we were actually buying the house, that it might end up looking like that. But yeah, pleasant discoveries. Come on, boy. Sit. Sit. Good boy. So, 4, learn the basics. Okay, now, what are the basics? I think there's 4 very simple steps that start you off in good stead, right? So, I would say there's 4 stages, okay? And it's prime, base coats, wash, highlight. Okay, so prime, you're going to get, I think if you're a beginner, you're going to get a rattle can, spray can. I would advise potentially a dark grey and a white to start. So I would say the best way to start off is to do what's called a zenithal prime. Okay. And the way you do a zenithal prime, you can take this in more stages if you want, but I think the best way to just start out, nice, simple, you prime and spray the mini dark grey, okay? You want it sort of, like I say, it's not black, but it's not battleship grey. It's somewhere in between that. It's darker than that. Maybe a smidge darker than my vest is now. Yeah, prime it that. And then, so that's, make sure you get underneath, round, above, all those bits behind a shield, up between the legs in their crotch bit, back of the capes and everything, where you easily missed bits. And then you're going to take your white. Once it's dry, make sure it's really dry and it's properly cured. Leave primer to cure and properly cure. That really much depends on how hot it is at any given point as to how long that will take. So then you'll take the white, and now you're not going to make sure you cover all of the mini. What you want to do is, imagine I'm the mini, right? I'm here, dude, and imagine the camera is the spray can. You're going to spray the mini from above like this, okay? Go all the way around it, yeah? So what you're not doing is, if the arm of the mini, chuck this on the floor, the arm of the mini is out here like this, the top of the arm will become white, but the underside of the arm will stay that darker grey, or just sort of go a slight gradient of it as the spray kind of doesn't, just give it doesn't get a flat cut line. Now this does 2 things, right? As you get on in painting, it helps you actually add shading. As you thin your paints or use speed paints and stuff like that, you actually use the shading that you've given the mini at that point He's just sitting wait patiently, just like, I don't know what the hell he's prattling on about, but I'll just sit here and wait here. Yeah, you'll actually use that shading, that pre-shading that you've done, as your paints become more transparent via whatever method you're doing that. And you know, the tops bit, the highlights will be naturally there already. But at this stage, what it's going to help you to do is just see everything. You'll often find when you're painting minis, certainly like if it's a Games Workshop or Warhammer mini, they've got stuff all over them, everywhere. Bags, bottles, grenades, straps, pouches, you know, lanyards, talismans, rings, you know, stuff all over them. And it's really hard if you've got a flat miniature that's just primed one colour. So it just highlights a lot of the details for you, brings out a lot of the details, and just makes your life a bit easier. So I think it's a really good tip. So priming your models in that way. Then we're going to do base coats. And this is really simple as that. So you're going to take all of the sections of the model. Let's say it's a fantasy kind of ranger type mini. It's a dude in with long hair, with a bit of a cloak, in, you know, high leather boots, couple of belts and a sword and a bow on his back, right? So you're going to decide what colour the cloak's going to be. You're going to paint the cloak all that colour. You're going to decide what colour his pantaloons are going to be. You paint his pantaloons that colour. You decide what his his whatever's on his chest. You know, it might be a piece of armour, might be a breastplate, or you know, some flowery shirt, and paint it that colour. And you go through that with all of the sections. Paint the flesh, paint the gloves, paint the boots. You know, paint the straps as carefully as you can. All right, and that's it. That's all you got to do. Just get them that colour, right? You go on to the wash. Now, a wash is something I actually should have mentioned in the starter set. You'll probably have a wash. It'll be either a black wash or a brown wash, or you might have both. I would say if you needed one, a brown wash is probably your better bet. You know, a sort of not too dark, you know, a sort of mid brown wash. Now, many refer to a wash as liquid talent, and for bloody good reason, because a wash, you know, it hides a lot of sins. So what a wash is going to do, so you're going to take that mini, once again, all those base coats are dried and all good, and with that kind of bigger brush that you've got, or you know, or a brush with a decent belly to it, belly being the bit between the silver metal bit and the tip. That's the belly of the brush. It's the bit that holds the most of the paint, and as you do your brush strokes, that gets transferred to the tip to you to do what you're doing. So yeah, so get your wash, and you are going to cut quite liberally, wash the whole mini. So you're going to put this brown wash over every little bit of it. And what you want to do then, once you've done that, you're going to, where it's, you know, take the worst of it off the brush, and where it's really puddling, so what the wash is going to do, it's going to come off the raised surfaces and pool in all of the cracks and recesses. So if you've got chain mail, it won't sit on the top of the chain, but all the little ringlets, little bit of wash will go in all of those. And if you've got, like I said, a breastplate or some armor or something like that, like say I'm wearing a breastplate, it won't sit here, but it'll start to puddle in this section, and where you get little indentations. So what you want to do is just take away the worst of those, where you've got like some absolute load of wash sat in one spot. Get rid of that and just suck it up with the end of the brush. Just dip the tip of the brush in it, and it'll take the worst of it away. If you take a bit too much away, just put a little bit more back on. Simple as that. Yeah, so again, so what that's going to suddenly do, it's going to shade the mini. So it's going to take all of those recesses and make them darker and leave the higher spots light, which will only be exaggerated if you've started to use that pre-shaded base priming layer that I've said about. So again, once you've now done your wash, you've let your wash really dry and cure, now you've got the highlight stage. Now you could arguably skip this stage in your earlier instances, but what you really want to do is probably bring back some of that colour. The wash will have darkened everything to some degree. Okay, so everything, even where it's rolled off the higher surfaces, it will still have stained it to some level. So what you're now going to do is, say that green cloak, you know, that's got that beautiful ripples in it. Wait, don't you go too far ahead, there's a road there. Yeah, that green cloak, what you now want to do is take that green that you started with, and just those higher tops of the ripples, you're just going to put a little bit of that green back on it. And, you know, where, say like the flesh, yeah, which is where the shading will have done great work, you might want to just highlight the T of the face and maybe the tops of the cheeks. So again, just take that flesh color, whatever you've used, and just T of the face and the nose and then tops of the cheeks. Just brings it all back up, gives a little bit more definition again. Just anywhere where you've got obvious high sections, you're just going to bring that color back again with those original base coats. Then later on, you're going to do the next stage of highlights, and you're going to take it, you know, even further and take those even finer highlights even further, and then you're going to get into edge highlighting and all sorts of things like that. But for now, this is just the early days. Yeah, so you're going to bring back those base layers with a little bit of a highlight from the wash. So yeah, that's number 4. Learn the basics. Right, number 5. Sorry, just before I go to number 5, it's one of my favourite places in the village. This is the allotments that we walk through in the village, and certain times of year, this being one of those times of year, it's just beautiful. I love it. It's such a nice place to walk, especially these first 2 allotments. They obviously, they either grow flowers because they like the flowers, or they grow flowers because they're good pollinators for the bees and the butterflies and everything like that. But God, I do love the allotments. I don't have the energy or will and desire to have an allotment, but I do have the, oh God, wouldn't that be nice? But I don't. I know I wouldn't do it, so I don't. So I enjoy vicariously other people's allotments. So yeah, number 5 is a quick one. Number 5, so this channel is called Standard Tabletop, and that is a play on the phrase tabletop standard. Now, tabletop standard means that you paint miniatures to a level that's called essentially good enough for the tabletop. So if you imagine that if you're playing a game, a miniature is on the table and it's best part of 2.5, 3 feet, even maybe more sometimes, from your eye, right? It's not here. You're not looking at it like you are when you're painting it, and like anything like that, it looks so much better, you know, from a distance. You know, you can't see all the bits you might have got a bit wrong here or there. You know, you can't see the bits where you might have missed a bit there and stuff like that. So yeah, painting to what I call a tabletop standard, or just remember it's good enough. That'll do. You don't need to keep doing too much to it, because you just never end up finishing it. And what you will do as you paint more minis, you'll get better at it. You'll get faster at it. And you'll be able to use all these techniques that you're learning all the time. And yeah, you'll just remember that most of the time a miniature is either in a miniature's case, pigeon, in a miniature's case, tucked away in the dark, nobody's ever looking at it, on a shelf that people walk past, very rarely ever pick it up and look at it by hand, or it's on a table, you know, and it only gets picked up to be removed from the table because somebody killed it. So yeah, just remember that most of the time you're looking at a miniature from a distance, not from right up close. So every now and then, when you sort of, you know, you think you've probably done enough, put it down. Even just put it down on the desk in front of you. That'll do. Look at it from there. And just know that, yeah, you know, it's done. It's all good. It's finished. You know, if you want to get into competition painting and, you know, or like real display piece or something, that's a whole different ball game. That's when you do absolutely go over everything painstakingly, looking at every little detail and minutiae. But just getting out starting, just, you know, it'll do. That'll do. As the immortal words of whatever the farmer's name was in Babe, that'll do, pig. That'll do. So, yeah, and I think on that note, that'll do. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed these little tips, and I shall see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
I could be a mess, stressed in yesterday. He don't care less.